Hey, friends, and welcome back to the dinner table. I'm so glad you guys joined us, and I'm so glad to have my friend Andrew Edelin here with me today.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for having you back, right?
Yes, we started this journey a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. We actually decided to meet, I don't know, several weeks ago. Your wife was actually here too. And we took a tour of the farm and we talked all kinds of like planning stuff. And deboned a rabbit
A
for
rabbit,
me. And I
yes.
made chicken and dumplings. And you helped me do some instant pot corn. And we're going to talk about all of that, like food stuff, in just a minute. Something was happening where every time we were trying to get together, like the stars weren't aligning. And I don't really know what that was about. But
Mhm.
the way I feel about interesting things like that, and a lot of people don't even think about that kind of stuff. Like they just don't, like, it just is what it is. But it's got to be, to me, it's always got to be like there's a reason why that particular thing wasn't aligning when you thought it was supposed to align. Instead, it's going to align when it's supposed to align, and you can't control that. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so thank you for coming back. Thank you for being patient.
No problem. I am built of patience.
Right? That's the farmer in us, or kind of watching things and being willing to sit back and put seeds in the ground that we may not even be able to harvest for 100 days.
Mhm.
There's absolutely a patience in that. And so it was funny because that first time recording something and then asking somebody, like, record for 30 minutes and then asking somebody, okay, that didn't work, so now we have to do it again. And the flub of it all was that the actual browser that I use, this Spotify for podcasters, they were having an issue with the Google Chrome
Mhm.
app, basically. And so I actually learned something from that experience. I learned a few things. Number one, I record in smaller segments now, so that way that I can check to make sure, so I don't have a guest that's sitting there for 30 minutes and then I'm like, okay, now we have to do that all over again and start over from scratch. So I do smaller segments of recording. But I also learned that one of the things that I'll need to check is if there's an issue with one of the apps, try a different app. So
Mhm.
just basically use a different browser is one of the things that they suggested for the future. But it is fascinating because the way today's world works with the applications we're using, they're moving so fast that they're not always keeping up with what they are telling people across the board they're keeping up with. And then there's just this one little bloop, and you're like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
And so that's what was happening. And then another week later, I had issue with the internet, which is also kind of an interesting thing. Who is y'all's internet provider where you are? Because you're rural, as like we are.
Yes, I believe G-Tech.
You use GTech also.
Yes.
Yeah. So we use GTech, and GTech is like the rural provider,
Mhm.
basically. And they have a lot to keep up with. They have a
They
huge
do.
amount and what I learned is that they don't really have enough technicians to keep up with the number of
Mm.
people that they're servicing. And so they were like, yeah, we're going to be out in a week. And I was like, yeah, no, like I have a business that I run online,
Mhm.
and half my business is my online content streaming and all the things that I do. And the other half of my business is the farm. And so it's like, okay, well, I can't just stop doing the work that I need to be doing.
Correct.
I can't not go update orders on the website. Things like that still have to occur. I have to keep things going. And so I kind of hassled them enough that it changed really quick. Excited about that for you guys. But do tell us a little bit about kind of the summer plans that you're making right now for fall planting. Those are some of the things we were talking about before when we sat down and
Mhm.
did some looking at the calendars and talking about some distribution things. What is it that you're planning to get ready for the fall, with all the production you'll have in the fall?
Well, it's already time to some of the plants that could sit in say, a 4-inch pot or sit in just a pot to keep them cool, not out in the field. It's
Mm-hmm.
time to start doing those. Maybe some tomatoes. If
Mm-hmm.
you do onions by seed, I think it's time also.
Yeah.
Maybe some eggplant, some peppers.
Mm-hmm.
But I play with the idea that down here, everyone's going to kind of get those plants going all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the farmer's market, any avenue that people buy their vegetables from us, they're going to be overwhelmed with all the same vegetables from all the same producers.
Yep.
And I
All at once.
yes, and I
Uh-huh.
have those high tunnels, so I've spent 4 years learning, and
Yeah.
now My wife is finally going to be full time on the farm,
Uh-huh.
and that's going to be her main thing is in the garden.
Yeah.
I'll manage it on the paper side and give
Mhm.
her a good calendar, and then
Mhm.
she'll go knock that out. But with the high tunnels, I'm like, well, let's pull back a month or two, and
Mhm.
everyone gets tomatoes October, November.
Mhm.
Let's aim for ripening tomatoes December, January, February,
Yep.
which I did a really good crop 2 or 3 years ago.
It all
And
depends on when that first hard freeze hits. I
yes,
mean, but you
and
gamble with it and you're patient. That's
yes, and I'm able to take some of the freezes with the high tunnels, and then I've lost sometimes only tomatoes and kept everything else
Yep.
because they're the least freeze tolerant.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'm
and
looking at all that stuff the same way. And part of what I do is I try to keep those plants alive through the summer so that I can maintain that stuff and it just starts setting again right away at the beginning of the fall. That's a
yes,
little bit of how I handle it.
and I want to get there too because I could take the plastic off our tunnels, put the
Mhm.
shade on.
Mhm.
But I don't. Something happens. The first year I had the tunnels, I think I was getting married
Uh-huh.
in May and June and
Yeah.
building a house. So we
Yeah.
didn't get anything planted in the spring.
Yeah.
So that was a dry summer. And this summer, I just didn't plant in the spring because I knew I was going to have a baby and it would all die anyway. So
Right.
why do the extra work up front?
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to play very well with over summering our
Uh-huh.
crops,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I believe I have good potential to.
Yeah.
Even if some are not flowering and producing, I should be able to easily keep tomatoes alive and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
let them, as soon as Mother Nature says it's time to put on a flower, everyone else has 6 to 10 inch tomato plants,
Yes.
and then I
Yes.
have a 6 foot plant that could throw out flowers and take off.
That's my goal. That's how I do it. And that's how I count on that. And then it gives me the bumper crop and then I might put in some more tomato plants that were kind of small, right there at the beginning of the fall. But then those other ones start setting almost right away. I do see that like things coming in big bunches all at the same time. Everybody has the exact same things.
Mhm.
And that's part of the reason of me trying to get a little bit more diverse and trying different types of things, learning like nobody's really, well, that's not true. There is somebody that is trying to grow some celery, but like that was one of the things I was like, celery is pretty sparse. There's not a lot of celery. Okay, so what can I do? Can I learn how to grow celery down here? What is the hoop house? What you're using a 50% shea cloth? Yes, right now, or you have a lower?
I had 130 and 150 when I bought them,
Uh
brand
huh.
new. That was 3 years ago. My 50 took a bunch of wind damage last year, so I'm only with a 30 right now. I have two 50s, hopefully in the mail,
Yeah.
and they'll stay on till November at least.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's fascinating to be able to see like what's actually working. The way I'm handling watering. I don't have the drip irrigation like you're talking about. I flood my beds, and so I create deep swales.
Hmm.
And then try to fill them with mulch if I can, or at least compost in place kind of situation. And then I basically go every single garden has a hose that runs to it, and I pick one or two sections or a section of the garden, and I run water in it for a couple of hours and let it flood up and fill up those swales, and then I turn it off for the day.
Hmm.
And I do that basically in four different places. And then I just try to do that every day for a couple. I mean, but I'm going from, well, two of my spigots are using well water, and two of my spigots are using city water. And so that increases my city water bill. Like it's actually
Yes.
technically it's not city water, it's co-op water, but like we're paying a water bill.
Hmm.
And so I went from spring, no watering whatsoever, to that. It's going to double our water bill, like boom, like so easily. I'll be
Yes.
curious to see how that
Well,
turns out.
I mean, speaking of water, I've been rattling around the idea for a year or two about harvesting rainwater, how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a lot of metal roof on our farm,
Uh-huh.
and I want to try to start this coming year, take some crops away from the main farm next to a very large barn we had from row crop farming,
Mm-hmm.
um, and somehow harvest that rainwater. But I think right now I want to do a 100-foot row of maybe table grapes if I could find a decent one for South Texas.
Yeah,
And
we're
then
going to try the Victoria ones you suggested. You
okay,
said that you had found. We're definitely, after this year of grapes being as fantastic as they are, we're going to
yes.
try those, and we're going to try one other variety as
Yes.
well. I'll let you know too.
Our plant is doing very well. We only had one grape
Bundle.
bundle,
Yeah.
put on the plant this year. It's only been in the ground a
Mhm.
year and a quarter for us.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take those 3 downspouts off the 100-foot length of barn
Mhm.
and pipe them to go right at the base of all those plants. So then I'll use like a similar to like a septic drain field, how they have the pipes, the PVC pipe with the holes
Mhm.
every couple inches. I'll run that along the length of the grapes and kind of let it self water as it's raining.
Mhm.
But I do also want to put a tank that's holding anywhere from 5 to 20,000 gallons of water.
So it secures it for you
Yes.
for another time.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Great. I can't wait to hear how that turns out, because we learn a lot from each other. We all learn a lot
Mhm.
from each. Well, the other thing that we're learning a lot about together, and you're about a year ahead of me, is rabbits. And so when I suggested that you come and be a part of the dinner table talk, come have dinner with us. Let's talk about dinner. Let's cook dinner. The whole thing. You said, "Can I bring rabbit?" And I was like,
Yes.
"Absolutely, let's bring rabbit." So that gave us the opportunity to try out some rabbit together, and of course talk about rabbit and what we're doing with all that on the podcast. So the meal that we made together a few weeks ago
Uh-huh.
was basically, it was an autoimmune protocol version of chicken and dumplings, but instead of using chicken, I used rabbit. And it's a very simple recipe. I thought it turned out really good. What
It
did you
did.
think? Yeah.
I thought it was good. My wife asked for the dumpling recipe later.
Yeah.
I was surprised because she's not a fan of coconut, and that was kind of coconut based,
Yes,
and
exactly.
she loved it.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
And the rabbit is really interchangeable for chicken, almost
Yeah.
any way you cook it.
I kind of think it has a better flavor though. Like there's
That's
more flavor to rabbit than chicken.
yes. Kaylin did say I think she likes rabbit more, and I was surprised I got her to eat it so easily.
Nice. That's good. Well, she seems like she's all in. That's the feeling I get from all of that. And
Yes.
of course, so this recipe was olive oil, a yellow onion. Of course, I'm using the onions from here at the farm. Celery. I grew a lot of celery last year. Was able to use that from the farm. Carrots I used from here. And then, of course, you deboned the rabbit for me. So
Mhm.
we had that ready to go. And I cooked the rabbit in the Instant Pot, just like I would have cooked a chicken in the Instant Pot. Very similar. I think you brought it to me frozen, right? Or a little bit still frozen,
I
maybe?
took it out of the freezer that morning, and so it
Yeah.
was half defrosted somewhere in
Perfect.
there.
So I was able to just throw that in the Instant Pot right after they got here, get that cooked, and then, started the process. So it really didn't take that long to make this whole thing. Garlic cloves, salt, onion powder, garlic powder, some fresh sage I used from the farm, fresh thyme. And then it called for bone broth. I did use some chicken bone broth that I had. And then the coconut cream. You mentioned that there was some coconut in it and some chives on top for garnishing. And that was the base, the soup part of it. And then I made the grain-free dumplings. And the grain-free dumplings were made out of coconut flour, cassava flour, arrowroot flour, salt, baking soda, cream of tartar, and then coconut milk as well. And that's how you make the little balls. And the first time when Joe and I made this recipe, made chicken and dumplings. I thought that the dumplings, and I don't know if he used this exact same recipe, but I thought that they were a little bit gummy. And I actually thought these turned out really good. They were a little bit chewier than maybe a normal dumpling.
Very similar.
You're like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah. Do you think if I had served that to you and not said these are like completely grain free and this whole recipe is like an autoimmune, would you even known?
No. I would have
Like,
just,
it was delicious.
that recipe's been in the family for 50 years. That's a homemade recipe. We
Cool.
don't have preservatives and flavor additives in there.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
really homemade is
Yeah.
probably what I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly the case. And so it's nice to be able to know that there is a lot of recipes. As a matter of fact, that is really what I teach when I do my food is medicine cooking classes. And so I try to do a food is medicine cooking class, once a month, that kind of thing. So you guys keep an eye out on the website and on my emails that are going out. If you're interested in being on my email list, you can go to aislyncampbell.com, and it's going to ask you really quickly if you want to sign up for my email, and then that'll give you an update on any of the classes and things I'm doing. And then we also did some corn that day, and corn is a grain. I haven't really introduced grains, but that day I had some fresh corn from a local farm, and we served that up next to the big pot of dumplings and rabbit, and we made those in the Instant Pot. You helped me out, kind of, send these guys over here and
Mhm.
and do work on this thing. It was really simple. It said cut, we didn't have to do any of this because it was already done, but it said cut the ends off of the ears of the corn, and then place the little trivet inside of your Instant Pot, put a cup and a half of water, stack the ears up, turn the pressure manual on, select 2 to 3 minutes. When the cooking cycle is finished, turn the steam release knob to venting position to do a quick release. And that was very simple. And I realized though, when we sat down to eat, I was like, well, I don't have butter for people that might eat butter. I had literally nothing to put on them. But so we literally ate a corn cob with some salt shaked on
I
top of it.
didn't notice we were missing butter.
You didn't notice we were missing anything. You're
No.
like, seemed to be good.
Yeah,
You're a pretty easygoing guy, Andrew.
I
I
am.
appreciate that.
I am.
But I really loved that meal, and I thought it was really good. And it got us to have kind of a first taste of rabbit. I've eaten rabbit before. There's a couple of people at the farmers market that they weren't selling it, but whenever they would process a few rabbits, they would let people like me and other people they knew that were really interested in rabbit know. And
Mhm.
then we'd just come pick it up, and they'd have them, vacuum sealed and frozen and all of that kind of
Yes.
stuff.
I did
Now,
sell my first one at the farmer's market.
congratulations.
There's just talking with customers. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the customers I conversate with more, they'll
Mhm.
stand there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I've mentioned it in the past
Yeah.
6 months, and there's been a lot of people, more than I thought,
Yeah.
people wanting them.
Yeah.
But we do, I mean,
Yeah.
as good as it is, it needs to be a norm.
Yeah.
It
We'll
does.
we'll get there. We'll get there. Tell me about, before we get digging into actually raising rabbits and some of the things we've run into, some of the things you've run into, and then you and I processing rabbits together not too long
Yes.
ago. You messaged me the other day that you cooked the rabbit a different way.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
One of the ones we processed, I took the biggest one
Mm-hmm.
and I split it down the, I guess, sternum,
Mm-hmm.
and then the back pelvis bone. I split that open so you could kind of flatten it out on a grill
Mm-hmm.
grate, and I smoked it for, I think, between 2 and 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt, when you were eating it, it felt like something you cooked for 24, chicken you cooked for 24 hours in a crock pot. It just fell apart. It was so soft,
Interesting.
so good.
It was good.
Yes, and on a smoker.
And it
And
wasn't dry or mealy or,
no,
yeah.
it wasn't. And I mean, looking at it, the outside seemed dry.
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly how I did it. I might have kept some kind of moisture on it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it turned out fantastic. I was a little scared taking it off,
Yeah.
because the outside did look dry, but it was great.
And what did you serve that up with?
I don't remember.
Or what did Kaylin serve that up with?
Probably okra,
Yeah.
because we got a lot of okra off the farm right now.
Yeah.
We still had zucchini at the time, so maybe some zucchini.
Yeah. That's what we're eating with
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
It
Tons of
blends
squash.
into all the other meals. I'm not sure.
My stuff is I'm eating a lot of green beans, and of course
Mhm.
I'm still eating a lot of squash. And I noticed that or Kaylin mentioned that she had been doing a lot of pickling squash. Yes?
Yes. So someone was buying squash off of me last year,
Mm-hmm.
and, oh, what are you doing with that much of it? Another vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was going to go home and pickle it. We didn't have a great crop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, here, I'll give you 20 pounds. You bring me back a couple jars to try.
Yeah.
And so I got half a case to a case, and they kept a couple cases once they finished.
Uh-huh.
It was really good. I didn't know pickled squash was that good.
Yeah.
And so this year, I mean, as soon as the overabundance of zucchini came in, we started pickling it
Nice.
and tried a few different recipes and kind of combined them some of the spices from one and some of the liquid base from another, and kind of combine it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we're satisfied. People are loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I was here, you turned me on to zucchini chips
Oh, yes. Tell
in
me
the
about that. You told me you
dehydrator.
tried that. How'd it go?
Yes. So I filled a dehydrator, 9 trays worth,
Uh-huh.
3 or 4 zucchinis that couple days
Of
after.
course, you can eat that all in like 3 days by yourself.
Yes. I mean, to be honest, salt, pepper, garlic,
Yeah.
as addicting as potato chips.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I can like literally rip through it. And it's funny because anytime I have somebody here to do a dinner, the dinner table talks, and we're cooking and all of that, I almost always pull out either that or kale chips or the tzatziki. I learned how to pronounce that more correctly. Tzatziki sauce with the cucumbers in it. But I watch people with those chips, the zucchini chips, one bite. Oh yeah, that's tasty. And then their
can't
hand just
stop.
keeps going in, a hand keeps
Yeah.
going in. So yeah, that's been a good one.
Yeah. Well, to hold the seasoning on the zucchini, we used coconut oil, and
Uh-huh.
I think that added a lot of sweet taste to it.
Yep.
But it could have just been the natural sugars.
Yeah.
All the liquid
Yeah.
got dehydrated
Zucchini's
out.
a
And
sweet thing,
it
and
was
it
very
really,
sweet.
yeah, tastes good. I had a Palermo white zucchini, a big nice one of those that had hidden from me, and
Mhm.
so I used it, and it had, this time of year the rinds on everything starts getting really thick, and these had some really thick rinds, but
Mhm.
even still with my mandolin they chopped thin, and it was actually kind of nice, the little crunch on the edge of the, and as long as you get it super dry. And part of the reason we were talking about this a few weeks back, when we were trying this out with another guest at the dinner table, and why do we put all the preservatives? Why can't we just make things? And I'm like, one day later, I'm eating the zucchini chips that were sitting in the bowl that were left out from the night before, and I'm like, this is why they put preservatives in things, because yesterday these were crispy and hard, and today these are like soft and gummy.
Well,
You know?
then while I was making it, you messaged me to make sure I keep them in an airtight container, and I guess
Yes.
that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure, because what ends up happening is that if so like say I've got the dehydrator running and I'm going to sit down with somebody to record the podcast, and I run over there and turn the dehydrator off and forget to turn it back on again, I might as well start all over again with the dehydration. Well, if you think about that, you're still cooking. I mean, for the most part, you might, like when I do my herbs, I'm down to like 90, I'm putting it to the lowest temperature, 95. So it's not really cooking, but when you're doing any kind of vegetables, you have to do it at a higher temperature than 95. Anything higher than 95 degrees and you're cooking it, which by the way, temperature gauge, you guys, anything above 95 degrees and we're cooking it now.
Yes.
So know that you are being cooked out there.
Yes, our farm is brown. We're an hour inland from the coast, and so left the farm. It was 114
Holy
degrees.
moly.
I showed up. I opened the door. Oh, it's kind of cool here.
It's nicer here.
It's 96 degrees.
Yeah.
We're on the water.
I so often say that about here where I am, Taft. I'm just close enough to the coast that I get a nice coastal breeze. We've got a lot of trees out here, and so it just feels cooler here. And I can go work now, not in the middle of the day, but in the late afternoon. I find a little place in my garden where I've really built up a lot of shade around me. I've grown sunflowers or whatever, and it's actually kind of pleasant. It's not horrible. And I know I'm saying that, and I'm out in the sun all the time and whatever, but for the general population, there might not be. But then I'll go to walk inside in the air conditioning, and I'm telling you, I keep my air conditioner set real high, like 75, 76, 77 sometimes,
Oh, we're 78 for the most
There
part.
you go. See? And then you walk inside, you still feel like you walked into a refrigerator because you've
Yes.
been outside in the heat so long.
Yep.
So our temperature gauges, the people like us that work outside all the time, are completely different than people
Yes.
that work inside all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have a walk-in freezer. I walk in there, my clothes freeze to me. It feels like
I'm sure, because you get,
that's
'cause,
bad.
I mean, I find myself, and I'm sure you do too, where you like you're outside, you're doing all the things, and then you come inside and you want to like sit down and you're literally like sopping wet. You might as well just go
Yes.
take all your clothes off and start over again.
Yes.
Because-
And hang them outside. Just anything you get inside is either, if
yeah,
it's fabric, it's going to stink or leave
Yeah.
a stain. It's
Yeah.
that wet.
exactly. Speaking of this heat that we're talking about, us raising rabbits, you raising rabbits, and being in the high heat that we deal with down here in South Texas, that's a huge factor in everything about raising rabbits. And I was curious to know how the summer is going so far. Well, this is not technically your first summer,
Our
right?
second summer.
So you were young. You had young rabbits last.
Yes. Well, I mean, they were past what a meat processing age, but they weren't to breeding age yet.
Got it. Mine have just reached breeding age.
Okay.
Mine were born in December.
Yes.
So,
but
yeah.
I mean, as every rabbit breeder knows, the rabbits go sterile in this amount of heat. So you got a few months. But it's been hard this year compared to last. I mean, last year we did have one casualty because I did have to get a new buck. But then this year, I mean, hitting 110 guaranteed every single day, some days up to 115.
That's crazy heat, man.
It's a sad reality of it, and it hurts to keep doing and going, but I mean, they do produce down here. It's just an odd little window or a month long of this heat wave that we're transitioning through, and we've had for sure a good handful of fatalities, and we're taking every pre-measure we can.
I think for me, what I've seen, or what's so shocking about this weather, is that we had such a nice spring that it just went from boom to boom. I mean, just like significant change in heat. And hopefully, while I'm out there on the road traveling, we're gonna have maybe a milder August after this crazy hot June that we started off with. But I don't count on it.
No.
I don't count on it. No. Rabbits go sterile in this heat. So as I understand it, they go sterile. The males go sterile at about 85 degrees, right? Once you hit that temperature.
That sounds close to accurate. I know in the spring I was still breeding and we were above 85 degrees. My population per litter went way down. As I was in the winter, I could pull 10 to 12 off with one litter, and I think all three my last three I bred were all 2, 2, and 2.
Yeah.
No, I had one that had some 2, 2, and extras. Only 2 survived. They didn't make it past a few hours. I forget why.
So it might just be not even only that it's that they're not breeding, but that like the babies and the moms can't make it in the heat too.
It's hard. And being what we're going through right now, looking at future forecasting, I'm gonna kind of backwards count on breeding. So we like to raise them for 10 to 12 weeks. And I'm having a cutoff. I want all my meat ones processed by June 1st.
Okay.
So I'm going 10 weeks before that, and then 32-day gestation. So then breed whatever date that is.
Okay.
And that's how I'm going to do it. You're not as warm as I am, even though we're in the same area. So you might be able to take it another month further, maybe call yours July 1st, have all your meat rabbits processed.
It's pretty freaking hot out there. I see those bunnies, and I actually go out and check on them a couple times a day just to and I'm always like, every time I walk up to the coop, I'm just like, everybody's doing good, right? I see all the ears are pricked. Okay, good. All right. Hi, everybody. And it's funny because I didn't think they were so skittish from me. And now they come right up. They're like, and there's some of them that don't want to be pet at all. As soon as I start touching them, they start freaking out. But there's others that are just like they're friendly. It's kind of strange to me. It surprises me that they're, but I'm out there watching all the time for this whole process of, what is this first summer going to look like for us? But we put ours inside the chicken coop. And then inside the chicken coop is a huge, massive shade mesquite tree that covers over the entire thing. And then I also have other types of shading element in my backyard you get a nice wind stream, the perfect like wind stream comes through there. But they don't look like they're miserable. But you can tell they're like, dang, it's hot. Like we're really hot.
Well, it's like us if we were to go sit outside all day and we wouldn't enjoy it.
No,
for sure.
Dang, it's
but
hot
for me, I have box fans on each of mine. I mean, we're windy out there. Some days we
But it's
just
the
have,
hot wind though,
yes.
right? Yeah.
So some days we don't need it, but I've come to the point I'm turning it on every day. So I think we have one box fan per 2 cages, and then come noon till 5 o'clock, I'm trying to spray them down with the water hose at least 2 times, maybe more. And then some days I have just little cheap Tupperwares that I put water in and freeze them, and then I'm giving them a 1 quart or so amount of ice, and
Mm-hmm.
then they could either lay on that, they could eat that.
Uh-huh.
It'll last about an hour or so before it's all melted
I
away,
should
and then
probably do that even
yeah,
though mine seem to be okay. That would
yeah,
be it.
and
But
then the chickens lay under the
of
dripping
course.
ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a good idea. I think I'll do some of that, freezing that ice like you talked about,
Hmm.
to pour ice freezing for them. And then, okay, so you, I told you that I was interested in taking up rabbits, or I think maybe you heard it on the podcast. I don't even know. You knew that
Yes.
I was interested in taking up rabbits.
I think you were sitting next to me at the market. You had a booth that week, and we
Yes.
were just chit chatting.
Yeah, perfect. And okay, here, tell me what you know. And you're like, well, the first thing you need to know is this Dr. Luke Flower.
Yes. Well,
And
he's the creator for the best breed option we have, which is really just a cross of
mhm.
7 breeds.
It's
But
called the
it's
Tamuk, which is Texas A&M University Kingsville Composite, right?
yes,
Yeah.
because that's where he was doing all his teachings, and he's taken this rabbit all across the world. A
Mhm.
lot of third world countries done a lot of projects with bringing a fresh, fast producing, quick cycle means of
Protein.
protein
Mhm.
to these third world countries.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I'm
so,
reading his book actually.
uh
I've
huh,
been reading chunks of it, and have read a big portion of it, especially the part where he's talking about getting it to other countries and stuff like
yes,
that. So,
yeah. But you were telling, saying you wanted rabbits and you wanted this specific breed, and
breed.
I'm like, well, I have that breed, and then you're,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we got to travel like north of
Yeah.
I-10.
Yeah.
It was like 2.5 hours
Tomball.
away.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
I'm like,
You're like, no.
whoa,
I know the guy.
that's
Yeah.
we're friends with him. You could
Yeah.
ask him all the questions. He created this, and
Yeah.
then let's go get you some rabbits locally.
Yeah, so I got a chance to go over and meet him and pick those up. And he talked about things like their pads of their feet are extra thick,
Yes,
and so that they can handle basically being in a cage, right? I mean,
correct.
yeah.
Um, and then, I mean, we put ours on the ground to move them
Mhm.
in the field. I don't think he did too much of that
Mhm. I
because
want to
he
do
was,
that too.
yeah, he
Yeah.
was focused on, I guess, the production and the breeding
Mhm.
for sure. But then the ears being extra large,
Uh-huh.
just because that's how rabbits mostly displace their heat is through their
Uh-huh.
ears.
Uh-huh. So
And
like
so,
jackrabbits have really tall ears. They live in the desert, that
yes,
kind of thing. So this is the same concept. These rabbits have bigger ears. They're not flop-eared,
uh huh.
and they have high prick rat ears. They also have what, a thinner hair coat, a thinner coat.
Yes, thinner coats, and he gave us a bunch of pelts recently,
Uh-huh.
and he was showing us the difference, even just a winter born and a spring or summer born
Uh-huh.
rabbit, just the thickness of the leather or the coat that they have on them, and it's noticeable for sure.
So we go over there and he's flipping these rabbits over and he's showing us how to tell whether there's male or female, which by the way, I'm going to have to know a lot more learning about that before. I still don't even know that I have a good able to like
Uh-huh.
grab them up and have a handful and like turn them over.
Yeah.
Of course, those were young rabbits. They're not these big giant rabbits like
Yes.
what I have
It's
now.
funny, but get on any Facebook rabbit group, and
Uh-huh.
that's the most popular picture.
Oh,
Is this a doe or is this a buck?
I'm sure. It's the same thing that they ask with chickens. It's just with chickens, nobody knows where their parts actually are.
Yes.
So, nobody
Unless you process them, and
Right.
yeah.
You're like, I know where their parts are. Okay. And so then a few weeks after we were supposed to meet and talk, I went over there and we processed together. I think we did
Yes.
like 9 rabbits together. And that was definitely an experience for me.
Hmm.
And so tell us how the whole process goes down. And I have a lot more to learn.
It's quite simple when you're coming in off of larger animals, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
As I've done many chickens and turkeys ourselves. We take the cows to get done
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere, but just coming off of that, I don't have to. It's for sure not something I'm scheduling a whole day to do. A
Right.
few hundred chickens, I could knock out some rabbits in a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's easy. I'm still learning all the intricacies of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're small, so it's a lot more detailed, I think, but it's a simple process.
You have to kill them. That's part
Yes,
of the process.
doing that,
Yeah.
it's
That's the part I
you
wasn't
can, yeah,
feeling like,
yeah,
and it wasn't that I wasn't that I was feeling bad about killing them. It was about doing it right. Because if
yes,
you don't do it right, it's not
yeah.
fun.
Luckily,
Not,
yeah,
not that any of it's fun, but
yeah.
you know what I mean.
Luckily, it's not how most animals are done. You kind of bleed them out. This, you're kind of, oh, I don't know all the technicals for it, but you're kind of incapacitating the rabbit. You're taking the brainstem away, I
Mhm.
guess. And
Mhm.
so he's not really feeling anything. You do that before you bleed him out.
Mhm.
And so we're able to, I guess, knock them out in a sense and then hang them up, bleed them out. And they're really not feeling much. And it's funny, by the time we do the whole process, get them in ice, they're still, their muscles are still twitching.
Totally. That was weird. But I can
Yes.
tell you that I never, even still to this day, I never had a like a sick feeling about it. I never had a like I can't do this feeling about it. It's a process of learning and being
Hmm.
careful that I don't hurt myself while I'm doing it, that kind of thing. But like there's like you feel warmth of them, a thing that's alive, that its parts are there.
Yes.
But it doesn't it I was really surprised, and I'm sure that you have not sure, I know that you have a lot more experience with that because you've talked about wild game hunting and things like that, and then of course the chickens and the turkeys that you do all the time.
Hmm.
um but it is interesting because I mean, sticking my hand down in the cavity of a rabbit and pulling out its heart and its lungs and its liver and its
Hmm.
bowels and all of that kind of stuff, and then cutting around parts inside of it. It doesn't feel like a life once you get to that point. It feels like what it is, which is
Hmm. You're
meat.
harvesting dinner.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, it totally did.
Yep.
And I was really surprised. I was curious to see how I would feel when I got there and started really messing with it and how would
Hmm.
that actually make me feel. I still have the process of doing it myself once I get to that point. And I still think that I'll be curious to see, because when this occurs here for me, I'm going to be doing it with my dad, and he's going to be,
Hmm.
showing me what he knows about doing it and all of that kind of stuff. We'll go through a whole process and I'll get to update everybody on how, we handled it. But there's a technique that people use where they've got this V-shaped board where they basically slide the rabbit's head, and then they kind of you just pull down, and it just
Yes.
separates, like you said, it separates the spinal cord, and then at that point you have to take them out. But not sawing. I think that, like I saw like meat, like I was
Yeah,
sawing and I was just like,
you're
oh
not used
God,
to,
that
I
made
guess,
me feel uncomfortable, like
yeah,
sawing.
bones and joints. And
Yeah.
I don't typically saw. I think I'm
No.
more just kind of push, and you just got to find that correct. I mean, you just think of a spine or think of knees. It's not really one bone going from your thigh to your calf.
Hmm.
There's this shape in there. If you get the knife in there just correctly, you could pop it out with kind of just pushing a blade. You
Yeah.
really don't have to saw or do anything else.
Yeah. And
And
then
it's,
finding those like okay, so you got to take their feet off,
hmm,
you've got to take their skin off, it's all these different parts. You have to, um, the male is different than the female, the way their parts are all laid out. And then you wanted to save the hearts and the liver,
the
right?
hearts and the liver.
Customers
Um,
ask for that, or people ask for that. Is that?
yes, a lot of
Mhm.
people eat that's probably the most popular organ meat.
And if we're raising these rabbits, we're processing, we're doing all this stuff, and we're trying to find good quality protein at an inexpensive price, but that is also well fed so that it makes us feel good. Food is medicine concept. what is it that we're feeding these animals, and how are we keeping them well so that we
Mhm.
can, eat
Well,
well food.
you and I are some of the luckier people raising rabbits. Most people doing it, save for fairs or something, don't have this plethora of a garden and vegetables
Yeah.
growing around. So, really, anytime you're harvesting, at least for me, and I'm picking out what I'm not going to sell,
Mhm.
well, used to go the chickens or
Mhm.
us, and now it's, I mean, us and the rabbits. And
Right.
the chickens are already free range, so they're just going to go get
Mhm.
their own.
Mhm.
But yeah, now it's
And then
kind of vegetables to the rabbits.
we're supplementing them with some grain pellets.
Yes.
We're doing that as well.
Yes.
I'm feeding my rabbits a lot of grass that I pull like when I'm weeding, and
Hmm.
they love it. I mean,
They
they
do.
just love it. Then you also have rabbit tractors, basically for
Correct.
the meat rabbit, the babies, right?
Yes. Once we could wean them at 4 weeks old, get them off mama's milk, then they go into rabbit tractors. So they're moving just like our chickens. They're
Mm-hmm.
usually daily moves to a new spot of fresh grass.
Mm-hmm. And they just dig around and eat. And how does the grass get up in between? This is one of the questions my dad had when we were
Uh
talking
huh.
about building it. He's like, how does the grass grow up in between? How do they get to the grass? All of that.
Yes. Well, they're very talented.
They're very talented.
You'd be surprised.
Uh-huh.
So I've heard. I mean, you got to have some kind of floor because they will dig out
Right.
quicker than anything. I've
Uh-huh.
caught them a good 100 yards away from their house before. I had a customer
How
and
do you
he's
catch them?
run around for a long time.
I'd
um,
be like, screw that rabbit. Like, I hope you're coyote meat.
yeah. But I had a customer at the farm and we're just talking. We already kind of got his order together and
Uh-huh.
uh, he's looking out to the field and what is that? I look and that's a rabbit. That's not supposed to be there. So he helped me and we entertained ourselves for 20 minutes trying to catch this rabbit
Oh my
because
God.
we got some old oil filled remnants on our property and he was in and out of this contraption that had a fence around it. And so
Uh-huh.
we couldn't get to him. We'd
Yeah.
get in and he'd get out and he'd get out and he'd get in and
I'm impressed that you had the patience to chase
uh,
that rabbit, by the way.
it
That's
took a
a
little while and then uh, they if they will bite. If they bite, they'll it's a hard bite.
Yeah, I'm
Their little
sure.
teeth are small and
Uh-huh.
sharp and they'll go through you pretty quick.
And try to pick one of them up. They will throw a back foot at you. I mean, they are,
Yes.
especially those big male,
Uh-huh.
man.
And
That's
that was my biggest scream from the rabbits is when I caught him. He thought his life was set. He was let go wild, and
uh-huh.
I caught him. I didn't hurt him or anything. Just
Uh-huh.
captured him. He was not happy.
He
Had to go
screamed.
back to his cage. Yep.
Oh, he's
Um,
like, dang it. I got
yes.
away. No.
So they do need some kind of floor.
Uh-huh.
We have two styles testing them out: a wire, a 2 inch by 4 inch square wire.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard pros and cons to that. One of the cons was as you're pulling it, it kind of lays down all the grass since
Uh-huh.
the wire is going both directions. So
Uh-huh.
we did one house with long wooden slats.
Uh-huh.
And so those go the length of the house that you're pulling
Uh-huh.
direction. So as soon as the front wall goes over the grass between the slats could kind of stand back up
Okay.
and then you pull it along and it doesn't have a reason to lay down because the wood is going the same direction you're pulling. And
Uh-huh.
so I guess you do lose say 50% as
Right.
it's the slat and the gap is about the same size, about an inch and a half as you're building it. So you do lose some of the grass, but they could access it easier, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I was they eat the same amount off of the wire floors.
Uh-huh.
And the way I'm moving it, I'm tall, so I do have plenty of height, and I
Yeah.
think you could easily
They're
move.
light enough for me to
Yeah,
move without some
yeah,
kind of machine.
you could lift it up
How often are you moving them?
daily.
Uh-huh. You just walk
Yep,
out there and just slide them forward.
yep. Takes all of half a minute.
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
pretty quick.
Gotcha. And then your breeders, they just stay in, because I keep thinking about my breeders, and I'm like, and
Hmm.
the thing is with the breeders, we can't put them together. So you'd have to have individual cages for each
Yes,
individual tractor for each one of the breeders. Right.
correct.
You can't even put the female breeders together. Could you? All the female breeders, they'd be mean to each other, wouldn't they? I
I've
don't know.
had them for a year and a half. I still would have to Google it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yep.
that's fine. I mean, that's the hands in the dirt learning part of it. When you put a rabbit and female rabbit in with another female rabbit in, and she eats the shit out of the other,
Yes.
right? Something like that.
Yep.
Anyways, but it's definitely different. Rabbits that are breeding age, anyone that knows anything about rabbits, even pet rabbits, it's a
Hmm.
whole different world. A female rabbit at a breeding age is a completely different animal than a non or I guess whatever they do to rabbits, they neuter and spay, and I don't even know. I don't really have a lot of experience um,
I don't know either.
with pet rabbits. I don't have a ton of experience with pet rabbits either. So rabbits are a thing. You and I are both studying.
Hopefully.
I have been praying like crazy. All of a
Yep.
sudden, I find myself like every time I'm out there, I'm like, "Good Lord, send us a thunderstorm!
Mhm.
Like, send us some rain,
I'll
please.
take it.
We need
And
to cool off."
yep, we're far enough off the coast that I wouldn't mind
Mhm.
tropical storms. It gets, I mean, it'll still get windy. There'll be some damages, but I guess not what y'all would get here on the coast. So I don't say it too much and too loud, but
Yeah.
I don't mind
Well, it's going to
the
be
moisture for
interesting,
sure.
even when this episode is out, for everybody, what we're looking at in terms of storms. We're actually having the highest recordable water temperatures, the high level water temperature, like the
Hmm.
water where we are at the sea level water temperatures are the highest in recorded history, and that is oh
Is that like the ocean water you're
yes.
talking about? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And crazy high temperature. So it's going
Uh-huh.
to be interesting to see what all. I mean, the thing is that conversation about climate change is that, like, we can't even deny it anymore, because we're seeing things that we've never seen before. That doesn't mean that it's
Hmm.
whatever people want to say about climate change. It's just different than we've ever seen in our recordable history. So
Yes.
all right, it's time for us to do that random question thing at the end. And I actually let you pull a card out, and let's see where we. Oh, this is fun. I already know the answer to this one for you. Now I'm curious to see what you say. Do you ever cheat when playing games? Do you play games?
I do.
What kind of games?
Uh, I'd say mostly board, card, or domino games.
You play dominoes?
I do.
Yeah.
Growing up, I did
Uh
with
huh.
my grandma a
Yeah.
number of times. I
Yeah.
haven't in a while,
Yeah.
but I'm all game for grabbing a set of dominoes and having a good game of chicken foot. Or there's some others that
Yeah. I'm
I've
not a
played
big
that.
game player.
Yep.
I don't. I have played games, chicken foot and dominoes, and my grandmother 42, all that kind of stuff,
Uh
I
huh.
did all that. And my family likes to play games, and Joe loved to play games, so that was kind of a thing we did a little bit of, but I'm just not a huge game player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not chasing it, but I enjoy to sit down if I'm somewhere else and play
Yeah.
some games.
Yeah.
Do I cheat? No,
I
generally
had a
not.
feeling. I was like, I already know the answer about Andrew. Andrew's not a cheater.
Yep. If there's a game that's going to take a while,
Uh-huh.
do I want to curve the rules that way it ends at least in 2 hours and not 2 days?
Like
Say,
Monopoly.
yes, Monopoly. I'll curve the rules for the whole group, not just me.
Yeah.
Let's change something up so we're not here for 48 hours. But no, I'm not generally cheating.
Yeah. I don't have a cheater. Like I'm trying to think of I wasn't even the kind of kid that like cheated when it came to like school things. And it just I don't know. I'm always afraid I'm gonna get caught. And then
Uh-huh.
and then I feel bad because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's just a game. Who
Yeah.
cheats at a game? Like
Yeah.
that's a different kind of person that, not to be judgy, but that's a different kind of person than I
Yes.
am somebody that cheats at a
I
game.
think the only one that's you mentioned school made me think of a game that we used to play. Um, Everyone knows about it. Uno.
Oh yeah.
That one.
I'm good at Uno, by the
Yes.
way. I'm very good at Uno.
That one, I don't know if it's considered cheating, but you just try to see how many plus twos and plus fours you
Uh-huh.
can rack up in a row. And
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah.
it's more seeing how devious you could get there versus cheating. But that's a fun one to bend the rules
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I'm a Uno. Of all the games, that was the one that my family figured out that they could get me to the table to play. And we used to have a running like chart that was like the Uno games. And whenever we'd get, of course, when the kids started peeling off to college, whenever we'd get kids back, all the kids back home, we'd be like, okay, we got to play at least one Uno game so we can get along. And I ended up winning the game and actually never got paid for my win. I was supposed to get paid for my win. But yeah, we did. I mean, that's, that's part of where the dinner table talk podcast came from, was the idea of having the whole family at the dinner table, playing games, talking about things, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, we're big game players as well. It's fun. Andrew, thank you so much for being amazing and patient and talking to us and teaching me things as I teach you things, and we share a lot of information as supporters of one another.
Oh, that's what this community is about. It's not, we're not about being competitors. Let's be friends and do it better, and use each other's
assets.
Greatnesses, and let's make it all better as an experience for everyone else.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're kind of food providers.
Yep. And so we're interconnected with that, and building that network and being like, I love that. That was the biggest, probably the most important thing to me of all the things. Yes, I have to start a food network, and we want to provide affordable access to food for people. But within the network, we have good vibes and we take care of each other. And that was like my number one thing. And I know that sometimes that gets a little bit challenging in the farmers market world and the whole politics of the farmers market world. So thank you for standing by that, as well as another farmer that wants to share, because at the end of the day, we're going to be the ones that are going to help to feed people if there's ever any kind of a major crisis.
Yes.
And we have fed people when there's been crises before. So
I would for sure say that I don't call them competitors, my friends, my most direct or most closest sales style, or what we're selling, I communicate with the most, kind of. And it's, I mean,
I see you guys promoting each other, and I love that.
And it could be just random, like, hey, did you ever think about doing this like this, and send a picture, or hey, I got this tool, it's so far out there, you probably don't need the used to buy it. I ended up on one very, very dirt cheap. Here, borrow it for a little bit
and see whether you like it or not.
I mean, we're doing the same kind of
co-op style, right? Yeah,
we're doing the same kind of projects. Let's buy one specialty tool and share it about.
Yes, that's solid. I love that. So thank you so much for being you, and for being here, and for enjoying dinner with me, and coming and talking on the podcast, and being a listener too. You've been a listener. You've always talked to me over the years about things you've heard on the podcast. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys again for being at the dinner table and showing up week after week. You are the greatest asset to any podcast, to have an audience that wants to hear from local farmers, that wants to hear from local chefs, that wants to hear from, really anybody that wants to come to the dinner table and have a chit chat with me and enjoy ourselves. So I'm thankful to you guys. If you want to be on the podcast, send me a DM. Let's talk about it. I'd love to have anybody come and have dinner with me. We can have a nice meal together and then talk about whatever's going on in your world. I'm looking forward to that. Also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. That helps me increase my followers on the channel and makes that a little bit of an easier stream to continue to put more things out. And then also, if you want to support the podcast, go to dinnertabletalks.com and click support the podcast right up there at the top. And it gives you an opportunity to throw a few bucks at. This is one of my main streams of content creation and finances, as well as all the other things that I do out here at the farm. So if you want to support small farms doing the things that they're trying to do, and people that are trying to create regenerative agriculture and trying to create affordable access to food, this is an opportunity for you to support the work that I'm doing and the people that I'm communicating with. Thank you all so much. I'll see you again on another week.